Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. The 21st Jeju Forum kicks off on June 24th, bringing together global leaders and experts at a time of growing uncertainty in the global international order. From the ongoing wars in Ukraine and the Middle East to intensifying strategic rivalry among major powers, the world is facing deepening divisions and growing challenges to global cooperation. So what impact can this year's Jeju Forum have, and what role should South Korea play as a middle power in helping shape a new era of international cooperation? To discuss this and more, we are joined by Moon Chung-in, chairman of the International Peace Foundation and a leading expert on South Korea's foreign and security policy. A very big welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Chairman, let's start a discussion right away, of course, with the Jeju Forum that's just around the corner. So as the chairman of the International Peace Foundation, one of the forum's co-host organizations, of course, could you briefly explain for us the foundation's role and also the Jeju Forum's contribution to, global dialogue?
The viewers may be very unfamiliar with International Peace Foundation. International Peace Foundation was founded by endowment given by Foreign Ministry and Jeju Provincial Government, and it was founded in 2005. And the International Peace Forum oversees Jeju Peace Institute and Jeju Forum. Jeju Forum is a kind of global platform for discussing peace and common prosperity in the world and in Northeast Asia, as well as the Korean Peninsula. It started in 2001, and initially it was organized by Jeju Provincial Government. But starting from this year, Foreign Minister and Governor of Jeju Provincial Government, they are the co-chairpersons of Jeju Peace Forum. Therefore, it has become kind of national event by the central government and the provincial government, and it will, be a very influential and quite prominent forum in Korea. Perhaps the most influential, forum throughout, Korea, and also it has gained international reputation. And I hope that the Jeju Forum would be very productive, agora for mutual discussion for peace and common prosperity.
Right, definitely. So we will definitely be looking forward to that. But when we get deeper into the theme of this year's forum, it's reinventing cooperation in this fragmented world. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the world today?
But before I answer to that question, I should add one more element.
Okay.
That is, Hyundai Motors has been global partner for Jeju Forum. Therefore, Hyundai Motors has been very, very beneficial patron of Jeju Forum. It is very, very unusual. The central government, provincial government, and private sector cooperate together, produce these kinds of international event. Therefore, let me just emphasize that point.
Right, so it's indeed significant. Mm-hmm.
And yes, as you pointed out, the world in turmoil. I just would like to cite from the Antonio Gramsci, who is a co-founder of Communist Party in Italy. In 1936, he published a book called The Prison Note. And in that book, he argued that the old order is dying, new order is struggling to be born. In this interregnum, there will be a time for morbid symptoms and the time of monsters. That means what? Old order, old liberal international order is in decline, but we do not know what would be the new order. In this transitional chaos, we have all kinds of problems. Russian invasion of Ukraine, the tragedy in Gaza, and American-Israeli attack in Iran, and growing uncertainty in South China Sea, and etc. The world is in problem, and particularly United Nations has become so much weakened. It cannot properly function as an international organization for prevention of war and resolution of pending conflicts, and etc. Therefore, Jeju Peace Forum will be focusing on those aspects, okay? How to restore order in this fragmented world, and what kind of actions and the rest of the countries in the world can take an actions and how to prevent the advent of those monsters who are really undermining international order. Therefore, our challenges are quite daunting, and the Jeju Forum will be addressing those very important issues.
Right, so the forum is taking place in a very timely and urgent situation right now. And we are aware that it will also bring together global figures like Pan Ki-moon, Hatoyama, and Yudo Yono as well. What kind of key issues do you expect them to talk about?
I think there will be diagnosing the causes of increasing chaos and uncertainty in international order. And they will be looking into what kinds of measures to be taken. Particularly, United States and Russia, two most powerful nations, have become the source of global instability. And how can we prevent that kind of phenomenon? That will be very important issues. And what kinds of collective actions the rest of others in the world system should take? That will be another important issue. And obviously, United Nations, empowering United Nations will be another very important issue. But equally important is peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and how to deal with North Korean nuclear problem, and also how to reinvigorate the ROK-US alliance system, and how to deal with the growing competition and rivalry between China and the United States. And also we'll be inviting quite a large number of heads and the leaders of international organizations, and also they will be focusing on how to resuscitate global order and the role of international organizations. Therefore, we'll be dealing quite a large number of issues.
Right, definitely a wide range of topics to discuss, and it will be interesting to see how these people would talk about cooperation in terms of restoring peace as well. Now, another highlight is a session featuring 5 potential candidates of the next UN Secretary General position, including Rafael Grossi and Michelle Bachelet. What makes this gathering extra significant?
Yeah, it is very interesting, because those 5 candidates will be having some sort of a joint conference in Geneva. Therefore, they will be addressing their pledges to the European audience. And then second turn is in Asia, and Jeju Forum was lucky to host that event on the occasion of Jeju Forum. Therefore, those 5 candidates, including Rafael Grossi, who is the current executive director of IAEA, they will all show up, and they'll be talking about how to, they want to be the Secretary General of the United Nations, okay? And therefore, we'll be asking, what should be their role, how they are going to have a reform of United Nations, and how to empower United Nations systems. Because power and influence of United Nations has been visibly declined, and also United Nations charters have been violated. How to restore all the functioning mechanism of United Nations will be a very important issue. And also, United States it has been contributing 23% of United Nations total budget, but the United States has been refusing to pay those due unless United Nations goes through the internal reform. And therefore, I think those candidates will be addressing those issues. Since they are giving press conference at the Jeju Forum, and they'll be addressing Asian issues within the framework of the United Nations, and that will be another interesting point. And also, since there will be a lot of Koreans there, then they'll be asking questions, what United Nations can do with regard to the resolution of the North Korean nuclear issue and peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. Therefore, it will be very interesting occasion for them as well as for us.
Right, so we will definitely be looking forward for their visions and ambitions as well. Now, we've been talking about the uncertainty across the globe, Chairman Moon, and we also touched upon around uncertainty around the U.S.-led system. What kind of role do you think middle powers like South Korea can play at this time, and how can the Jeju Forum, shape that direction?
With regard to the new role of middle power, Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada raised the issue at the Davos Forum in January. Since then on, there has been growing call for greater, influence of middle powers in shaping new order on the global stage. Therefore, and also at the same time, Lee Jae-myung government has been championing global, responsible, strong state, what they call the global 책임 강국. And therefore, there is international expectation that the Republic of Korean government should play more active role in cultivating the solidarity among middle powers and taking leadership in increasing voices of middle powers. But so far, I don't think the Lee Jae-myung government has taken that kind of role. And I hope that on the occasion of Jeju Peace Forum, on the occasion of Jeju Forum, I really hope that the Lee Jae-myung government can exercise more power and influence in shaping collective action of the middle powers. And Foreign Minister Cho Hyun, who is co-chairperson of Jeju Forum, will be stressing that aspect. Therefore, I hope as a result of this year's Jeju Forum, South Korea can take a leadership in forming new solidarity among middle powers and casting new agenda among middle powers for shaping new order or restoring old order, such as multilateralism and open regionalism, and etc.
So it will be exciting to see South Korea's growing role on that part. Now, competition among the U.S. and China, Russia intensifies, of course. How do you see the future of the Indo-Pacific region, Chairman? Also, do you think a new regional order is possible at this point?
I personally don't like the term Indo-Pacific. It is so divisive and confrontational. I like Asia-Pacific. And I personally believe there is nothing wrong with Asia-Pacific. And during the period of Asia-Pacific paradigm, we are able to shape peace and common prosperity in Asia-Pacific. We had Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, and on the rubric of APEC, we could have, East Asia Summit and all other kinds of trilateral, bilateral free trade areas, and etc. Therefore, I personally, I'm personally skeptical of this utility of Indo-Pacific idea, because Indo-Pacific is designed to encircle and contain China. By encircling, containing China, what can we get? China is near and powerful. We don't want to antagonize China. Therefore, I personally argue that in this era of Indo-Pacific, in American terms, we should come up with new discourses, okay, in the direction of a collective security system as opposed to collective defense system. We should come up with the idea of multilateralism as opposed to unilateralism. And also we should come up with the idea of enhancing open regionalism as opposed to protectionism and fragmented national policies.
Wow, very insightful comment that you've made. Now, when we talk about China, Chairman, we are aware that China's Xi Jinping has visited North Korea lately, and China's recent comments on North Korea have sent quite a lot of mixed signals regarding denuclearization. How do you interpret Beijing's position right now?
I really don't think the President Xi Jinping endorses or recognize North Korean nuclear weapon status. Chinese traditional policy is peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula, denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and peaceful resolution of the Korean question. Therefore, I personally believe the Chinese government still adheres to that traditional policy. But one day before President Xi Jinping visited Pyongyang, Kim Mok-yeon, sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, made a statement saying that North Korea will never give up nuclear weapons. And I think that should have influenced Chinese attitude. If host country, DPRK, does not want to discuss nuclear issue, then it will be very difficult for Chinese government to raise that issue. Therefore, in that sense, Chinese government did not raise the, hold this nuclear issue with the Democratic People's Republic. But I personally believe that the Chinese government is still interested in enhancing peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and nuclear weapons-free zone on the Korean Peninsula. It is yet to be seen, okay?
Right, but lately there are a lot of definitions on the so-called peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. You previously argued that nuclear risk management can be more realistic than a complete denuclearization. How realistic is it that the Lee Jae-myung administration's phased plan of freeze, reduction, and dismantlement?
Is there any other options? Okay, you are witnessing through the American-Israeli attack on Iran. Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. And then the United States has been trying to compel Iran to give up its nuclear weapons, but no progress at all. But North Korea has nuclear weapons. It's a de facto one. According to most recent Stockholm Peace Institute report, now North Korea has acquired at least 60 nuclear warheads. And also it has all kinds of ballistic and cruise missiles. And North Korea has undertaken 6 rounds of nuclear testing. North Korea claims that it has miniaturized nuclear bombs, okay? And it has made nuclear bombs lighter so that they can use them for tactical nuclear weapons as well as multiple nuclear warhead of ICBM. Therefore, we cannot recognize North Korea as a nuclear weapon state, because we are a member of Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT Treaty. However, we should be aware that the North Korea has nuclear weapons. Then, that being the case, then we cannot start with denuclearization. North Korea will never come to dialogue. Then what is the best way? Okay, we can talk about the freeze and reduction, okay? And then we set the so-called denuclearization or nuclear-free Korean Peninsula as a long-term goal. Mm-hmm. And that is a more realistic way, because what is really important is how to prevent the outbreak of war and escalation to the nuclear confrontation. Therefore, tension reduction, confidence building, and transformation of existing armistice agreement into some sort of peace regime will be the most important task, rather than just pounding on, empty rhetoric of denuclearization or CBID, complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization. That is not, I really don't think it is realistic.
Mm-hmm. So we should be looking for a more feasible approach right now. Now, you've also said that inter-Korean relations today are even more difficult than they were in 2017, possibly because of the developments that they've made over the period. Under the current two hostile state reality, where can breakthrough actually happen from right now?
It's very, very difficult. But we should keep in mind, DPRK has always claimed one people, one state, two local government, and two systems. And since 1989, when then President Roh announced the Korean Commonwealth unification policy, our approach has always been one people, two states, two government, and two systems. Therefore, two-state solution was our approach, and North Korean approach was a one-state solution through federation or confederation. Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un changed that policy from his grandfather and father. Okay, therefore, in a sense, it is a very positive development. Okay, North Korea is now adopting two-state solution. Our government policy has always been two-state solution. Then problem is what now? Chairman Kim Jong-un is using the term hostile two-state relations. Therefore, if we can drop hostile and have a two-state relations, there might be ways of enhancing inter-Korean exchange and cooperation and confidence building measures. Therefore, when North Korea come up with a two-state solution, we should not be allergic to that idea. Okay, we should look at it in more constructive way. Then we can find some common solutions. But at present moment, I think it is very difficult for us to resume dialogue and negotiation with North Korea. And chance for exchange and cooperation is very low. But as President Lee Jae-myung argued that we need to be patient, okay, and we should find out, eye of needle, okay, and in seeking some sort of communication with North Korea, then I personally believe that North Korea will respond in kind.
So could we interpret that as, in order to drop the hostile part, we have to start with a small dialogue, opening small dialogues with North Korea?
Precisely. The President Lee Jae-myung has argued that small successes can lead to big success. Therefore, we should not aim too much. We start with the small issues and make a breakthrough and build the trust. In that way, we can enhance inter-Korean exchange and cooperation.
Right, definitely. Now, so we are seeing a recent U.S.-China, North Korea-China summits, a lot of things happening across the globe, and it's reshaping Northeast Asia as well. What should South Korea's top diplomatic priority be at this point, and how should it balance its relations with, the two big powers, Beijing and Washington?
President Lee Jae-myung has been arguing so-called pragmatic foreign policy based on national interest. What is the national interest? Most important national interest is survival. How to survive? The best way of ensuring survival is building peace, preventing war. Okay? And in order to, avoid war and build the peace, there must be overall reduction of tensions across DMZ. And also North and South Korea should enter some sort of confidence-building measures. That is, essential ways. But on the other hand, Korean politics is directly intertwined with big power politics, great power politics. Therefore, we should come up with very creative diplomacy vis-a-vis the United States and China. Okay? I think the current government is trying to preserve existing alliance system with the United States, but not necessarily undermining relations with China. Therefore, current government will try to pursue alliance with the United States and strategic cooperative partnership with China simultaneously. Muddling through these two axes of our foreign policy will not be easy. But I think that President Lee is smart enough to handle those things. Therefore, it's yet to be seen. But so far, first, now, Lee Jae-myung's government started a year ago, but when we make the assessment of first year of Lee Jae-myung government foreign policy, he has so far done very well. And I hope he can continue and make some kinds of breakthrough for peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula.
Right, a very important point to end our discussion tonight. Chairman Moon, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
My pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.